I did want to ask this. Do you still have hope that your World Series champion Texas Rangers, always fun to say it, will still get a chance to sign Jordan Montgomery?
I have lots of hope on that.
Okay, lots of hope.
I really do, because Jared was saying this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said it could happen out of thin air one day, within hours, or it could take all the way into spring training. And that's because if he was going to be signed somewhere else, he'd be gone right now. Obviously, he wants to play here. Obviously, he's waiting to see if they can work something out. Boris is the devil. That's his agent. Scott Boras, if it was strictly about the money, the devil. Yes, he is. Ask somebody. If it was strictly about the money, he would have been signed somewhere else already. And if it was about Boston, where all these people in Boston think his wife works there, but that doesn't mean he wants to live there or he wants to play baseball there.
So
he's already been there, done that.
On the truckwreck.com text line from the 214, from the 214, I'll have hope till he signs somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what
I do think that the Rangers will add someone, whether it's him, Blake Snell, who is another guy out there, or the smart financial high risk Trevor Bauer from the 940. They said no, Jordan Montgomery ain't gonna be here.
I've been waiting.
From the 469, they said some hope, but
Montgomery.
The hope is in the way of, I hope I win the lottery and can pay off my debt. I don't really think it will happen, but it never hurts to have hope, right? So that really seems to run the entire gamut of various emotions and feelings on this. And I mean, look, spring training has begun.
Yep.
And he, in addition to a few other Scott Boras, as you mentioned, Scott Boras clients, are not signed, right?
That's right.
Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic wrote a very interesting piece, at least for me personally, where he talked about kind of the stare down between what he is terming the Boras Four, which is his 4 clients that are out there as free agents right now, and their potential suitors, right? So he also, I mean, the person from the 940 says, no, Montgomery is going to be here. And I imagine that's aided by general manager, executive for your Texas Rangers, your World Series champion Texas Rangers, that is. Chris Young said, I don't think there are any additions coming at this point.
Let me tell you about Chris Young.
Please
do. He's very smart, and he's not going to negotiate through the media. I'm going to tell you about a general manager, or at least part of that front office, that was stupid. And that would have been Stephen Jones when he was negotiating with Ezekiel Elliott's agent, Rocky Arsenault, and he negotiated through the media at the combine on the bus saying, oh, yeah. They said, is Zeke going to get Todd Gurley money? He goes, Todd Gurley money is the floor. And then guess what? He wanted to try to renege on that, and Zeke had to go to Cabo. I'm just trying to tell you, Chris Young ain't going down that road. He's not closing the door, but he's saying, you know what? If you want to talk to us, we will talk. But it's not like, oh, you're the only one that's missing. We got to give you the money. He's not going to do that through the media. He's smart. And you see why he doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. He brought you a World Series. But you're not going to hear from him say, oh, we desperately need Jordan Montgomery. Oh, please, we got to have him. We're willing to give him everything, but he just won't come. He'll never say that. It's Scott Boras he's dealing with. He knows how to dance with the devil.
Yeah, and so I think that you have that. You have some other guys that are some other kind of managers or general managers who have kind of spoken in, I guess, teams that you maybe view as potential suitors, like the Blue Jays general managers who said, quote, at this point, additions that would be of significance would mean some level of subtraction, right? There's a few of them, and I mean, I can add more to this, that have kind of
They know how to deal with Boras.
Right, and I feel like they've kind of played their hands to the point where they're like, yeah, I don't anticipate anything. And I think we've looked at this as, man, I don't know, as time goes on. Scott Boras' clients, and this has happened before, where they have just waited to very late in it when the money does not seem to be forthcoming. The reason why you call Scott Boras the devil is because, and I imagine there's a lot of players that call him an angel, is because he works his damn hardest to negotiate and get his guys a ton of money. Literally, he squeezes and extracts the most value that I think of any agent in most of sports.
Yes, he does. And the other thing he does is he tells them, when you become a free agent, you're not going back. His clients have a history of, once they become a free agent, they don't re-sign with their team. They just don't, because he leverages it elsewhere. That's just his history and the way he does it. Well, guess what? Some of those days are gone, because it hadn't been the case like verbatim for the last 2 or 3 years. And with that being said, you can always go behind Boris's back and say, I want to stay with my damn team. You don't just have to leave for the money. And Jordan Montgomery, we mentioned this pillow deal that Adrian Beltre signed with Boston for just 1 year, a pillow deal. He signed a big contract for 1 year, and then he went back out in the free agent marketplace the next year and signed with the Rangers. And guess what? Stayed with the Rangers and went to the Hall of Fame. So it's not impossible for a baseball player to just say, I got to have all the money now, and I got to have a long contract. They might want to bet on themselves. And I'll give you another one. Pudge Rodriguez back in the day said, you know what? I don't even know why my agent is playing so hardball. I want to stay with the Rangers. And he went straight up to the general manager's office behind his agent back and signed an extension with the Rangers.
Yeah,
those things happen.
Sure, I do think that Jordan Montgomery also, like, he's looking for that deal. Like, he's looking for that opportunity because he has not been able to cash in a big way over the course of his career.
That's what, look, you know what you said over his career.
Yes.
But at the same time, I can understand that part of the equation. But and you might say, well, he's in his 30s. He wants to get a $200 million contract. No, he's not going to get a $200 million. He might want a $70 million contract. He might not get that either because of his age.
And so,
by the way, Ranger fans, somebody threw out this theoretical on this station. Would Ranger fans even care so much about Jordan Montgomery if he was just a regular old free agent? He wasn't on this team last year.
I mean, no, but
in other words, just the naked stats from some other team.
I mean, in a way, yes. Though, like, I understand what you're saying. Like, if you look at the stats, he pitched well this past season. And
I'm just saying, if he pitched well this past season for another team, I think because he helped this team, people feel some loyalty.
There's that, but I also think that you can look at the way that the rotation is built right now, and it's solid. But if you have injuries, you're going to need because you're not going to have
Jordan
Tyler
Montgomery
Mahle.
tight.
You're not going to have Tyler Mahle. You're not going to have Jacob deGrom. You're not going to have Max Scherzer for a very long time, and you're going to have to try and exist with what is, I guess, in a way, a bare bones rotation. It feels disrespectful to say about the guys that you have there: Eovaldi, Gray, Dunning, Heaney, even Bradford. Right, those are the guys that you kind of have slotted in your mind right now for your rotation. But injuries are going to happen, and you don't have a lot of depth behind that. Having Jordan Montgomery would make that a lot easier to handle and deal with.
I guess I'm not being clear. What I'm trying to say is, wouldn't any free agent who's of his caliber do?
Sure, but this has also been a shallow starting pitcher free agency, and so he is one of the few that are out there. So I think that people would appreciate
this is where I'm going with this. This is where I'm going with this. If he wasn't Jordan Montgomery who helped you win the World Series, wouldn't you just say any old free agent of his caliber would do?
Sure, but I'm again pointing to the fact that there's not many of those out there, so he is one of the few, and thus you were in that
If they got somebody else who had those same kind of numbers, would you be happy?
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
But point me to that guy. I'm saying, like, you're creating a guy that does not exist. You don't really have those guys out there in the marketplace, and I think that's why. And that's why Scott Boras is in this place, because he understands there's a scarcity of guys that can do that in a way. And so he's trying to hold out for an opportunity. And I think that's ultimately some of this is the teams are in a place where they are posturing to make sure that we're not getting extorted, for lack of a better term.
Right.
And Scott Boras is trying to do that extortion. And I think that we'll come to a point at some point where everybody will meet somewhat in the middle. I don't know exactly where in the middle, but I still have hope that ultimately, that's my thing, is I think still have the hope that the Rangers understand the circumstances that they're in if they can do something like that pillow deal, right, with Jordan Montgomery. I think that's a possibility still.
I've said from the beginning, I think they're going to sign him. At the same time, as you just mentioned, they're not going to let Boras extort him. They're not going to overpay for Jordan Montgomery.
Or they're going to do their damnedest not to.
As the 860 kind of puts it, he says Jordan Montgomery has been a 3 or 4 guy in the rotation his entire career. He got lucky, got hot at the right time. He says, I would prefer he walk. I wouldn't prefer he walk, but at the same time, I'm not going to let Scott Boras demand an ace salary from him, from the Rangers. You follow what I'm saying? The extortion you're talking about? But I think CY is going to get the value for him, because there's nobody else going to overpay him.
Yeah, and I think with everything,
because he's 30-something years old.
I think with everything, context matters, and I think the context of what your team is, I would much rather you have a guy, even if you view him as a 3 or 4 guy.
I totally agree.
You could use a 3 or 4 guy.
But my point is, they're not going to let Scott Boras extort them. But I think there's nobody else that's going to overpay him either. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Ranger fans are like kind of consumed because he's our guy. And definitely you need him. But guess what? He's 30-something years old, and he's not an ace. And Boras is going to try to get ace money out of somebody.
I think this is interesting, and you did mention, and I think you're right in this regard. Scott Boras, the what you would typically view as like the big spenders, they're not really in the market. Mm-hmm. Maybe you mentioned the Yankees, and I think Blake Snell is where their eyes seem to be trained, if all by all intentions or all indications rather. And so I think that this thing could come together. It's just going to take time.
Yep.
And I think the thing that would make me even more comfortable is that he's been in the system, even be it after the trade deadline.
Down here.
Right. And so I think that he could really acclimate back to what the Rangers system is and all those things pretty quickly.
He's comfortable. He loves Boch, and he knows where his role is.
Especially now that the Rangers, I do wonder if this would have been done a lot sooner if the Rangers, money was straight, right? Because the TV deal added a complication to all of this. But I still have hope that that's going to come together. Can I play this audio real quick?
Sure.
Because I love Jared Sandler and what he does for this station and his coverage of
he's going to do some TV
the Texas Rangers. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Watch out. If you can see it. But there you go, right? Like he's does a great job, and he hosted Rangers Hot Stove 7 p.m. earlier today. He had Justin Foscue, who is, one of the big prospects in the Rangers farm system, an infielder, kind of a second baseman, middle infielder by trade. He's played a little bit of first base. He's doing a lot of work at first base this spring training. I want to see that.
And he can hit.
He sure can. But Jared asked him a question that I thought was really interesting. Maybe not exactly pursuant to this, but we know that pitching is something where this Rangers team in the bullpen, they had a little bit of issues with that, and that's the bullpen isn't like robust necessarily now. And then your rotation, at least until you get to getting those star guys back and healthy, you're going to have a little bit of issue there. So I think you're going to need some younger guys to come in, fill in, do some things. I thought this question from Jared Sandler to Justin Foscue was really interesting on some maybe a name that you need to keep watch on who could be a young guy to come up and help.
You've been around some of the young pitchers who are also kind of in a similar position, fighting for opportunities at the big league level, guys who have not maybe demonstrated to, say, the fan base, what they can do. So who's a young pitcher who you think these fans should know about, someone who can maybe come up and impact the team at some point this year when you're in the box against them and, in surprise, or you're like, oh my God, this guy's nasty. Who's that guy for you?
Yeah, it's Antoine Kelly, and it's not close. He's when I'm at second base, playing behind him, I just feel bad for the hitters because I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. And I know, by the swings that the opponents have taken off of him, it doesn't look comfortable. So I'm excited for him, and I'm excited to see what he can do for the team. And yeah, he's gross. That's all I'll say.
Antoine Kelly, go ahead and add that name. Left-handed reliever, 24 years of age. And I mean, the idea that he's a left-handed reliever is a big one. This team does not necessarily. They have a lot of right-handed arms out of that bullpen. Having a guy with the lefty, and then also that Justin Foscue mentions is nasty and these things, right? Like having someone like that is going to be a huge tool for someone like Bruce Bochy, who we know managed the bullpen well. I'm interested now, very much so, in maybe what Antoine Kelly does over spring training.
Spring training is going to be fun.
It is fun.
And the only place you can hear it all.
Where would that be? Where would that be?
The home of the World Series champion Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan.
In fact. Friday, baby, we are back with baseball action. The Rangers get a little bit of spring training, Cactus League baseball. Friday, you'll hear it right here.
Friday night.
Actually, right about now, because 8 p.m., you will be hearing Rangers baseball on Friday. Right here on your home of the Rangers, World Series champion Rangers, 105.3 The Fan.